So for my Vision Tek project, I decided to learn coding. So the coding language I chose to learn is Python. It's a good place to start. You learn all the basics of how coding works, and from there you can move on to other languages if you want to. So the way I started out with that was on this website called Code Academy. So you can sign up for free, and they will guide you through whatever type of code you want to learn. So if you want to do Python, you can just look up Python. And there are two types of Python. There's Python 3, which is like the updated version of Python. And there's Python 2. Here it is. So on Python 2, that's what I decided to start out with. And through the lessons, it did explain how it was different than Python 3. So here's just an example of what one of the lessons will look like. So you can see that on this side here, it has the explanation of what you're going to be learning, and it tells you what you're supposed to do. And then it has a little task here for you to do. So this one says it wants you to type a string. So you'll do that, and you'll run it, and then it'll check this box. And a few of the basic things that I learned on Code Academy were how to print a basic sentence. So for Python 2, you can just write print and then in quotes whatever you wanted to print. In Python 3, you would also need this, but this also works on Python 2. It'll still be there. And then you need to know how to define a variable. So here we have x equals 2, y equals 4, and then you can say print x plus y, and here we have 6. This could be anything. I could write Bob equals 2, dog equals 4, print dog plus Bob. Still 6. And through Code Academy, it also explains how that would work with words. It's a little different. And if you want to add comments into your coding, you just have to put the number symbol first. So, just like I've done here. And some other important aspects of coding that you'll learn are functions and loops, which are vital to anything like a game, which is what I did end up going on to do. So here you can see I decided in the second half of my project to make a Pong game. So here we have the functions. So I've already defined paddle A up above. And here is where I'm saying paddle A will go up 20 whenever I hit Y. 20 pixels. The numbers are measured of everything. It's measured in pixels. So you've defined it, and then you'll set what it's going to do. Here's where we have my loops. You can see I have comments putting in where to remind me of what everything is. These are the loops for the ball. So this is saying that if the ball goes past 290 pixels, which means it's going to go off the screen, then it's going to reset it back, and it will be going the opposite direction. You can see go to 0, 0. Okay, so as I said, for the second half of my project, I decided to make a game to apply the skills that I learned in Code Academy. So to make this game, which has a lot of moving parts, a very crucial part is the turtle module. So Python has different modules built into Python. So it's essentially someone else has already put a bunch of code in, and you can use a few simple commands to access it. So the turtle module itself has a lot of it allows you to use moving objects. So to access it, you just type import turtle. Now we're going to make our object be named Tim. So Tim equals turtle dot turtle. Okay, so Tim princess. Tim will be 10 pixels. Tim shape. He's gonna be a turtle. He could also be a square, an arrow, several other things. Tim dot color. We're gonna make him red. Okay. Did I mess up? Oh, whenever you have a word, you need to have the quote marks. There's Tim. Okay, so now we're gonna make him move because that's the point. So Tim dot forward will make him move. I'm gonna make him go forward 100. There he goes. And he's gonna turn right 90 degrees. And he's gonna go forward another 100. So there you go. But sometimes we don't want that line to be there. For example, in the pawn game. So to get rid of the line, you gotta do Tim dot pin up. And then he's gonna go forward another 100. And no line. So if I put the pen up all the way at the beginning of this, he would just move without a line, which is what happens in our Python game. Now you can also have turtle objects that don't move on their own or that move when you have a command, which is also something that we make use of in my game. So I don't quite have the skills to come up with this all on my own yet, so I followed a tutorial. Here we have a series of tutorials. This channel also has some other games that you can learn to make if you don't want to do Python. So here when you get started,
in Python 3 for Beginners, Part 1. Let's take a look at what we're going to be building today.
he shows you what you're doing, and then he helps you get started. See, the first thing you do is import turtle, which on my game here, you can see that I have done. Now, importing Tinctor, that is another module part of Python that allows you to make a separate window that the game takes place in, which is sometimes built in. This whole thing is called a compiler, and that's what you put the code into, and it comes out of. So this is an online compiler, and you can also download them to your computer. So you get started by importing turtle. So here you can see that I have defined the first paddle as paddle A, and it's just like I did with Tim, but his name is not Tim. His speed is 0. There are a few other things you can add. His color is white, and you can see that this here is changing the size. Instead of just a normal square, the width is 5, and that means it's going to be 5 times 20, I think. So he'll be 100 wide and the normal 20 this way. So you can see when we run it that, okay, here's paddle A. There it is. The paddles don't have anything making them move on their own. You can see it's just defining what they look like. Now here we have a similar thing for the ball. It's another turtle object. Speed is 0 because we have a function or a loop later that controls what it's doing. Here we have the defining parts for the ball. Same with this is the pen. It's a little different. This turtle object you don't actually see. See, this command here hides the whole turtle object. The only point of this is to show the score. So all it's doing is writing the score. You can even pick the font. Okay, so here are our functions. And if you go down here, you can see that it's set to move 20 when we make a command. And here, it's saying what that command is. So every time I press W, this is going to move 20 up, as you can see, 20 pixels up. When I press S, 20 down. And on the other side, it is the arrow keys, up, down. That's pretty much it for the paddles, except for the commands that make the ball bounce off of them a little more complex. So here we have the functions for our ball. The ball is set, this screen is, as I defined at the beginning, it's 800 wide. So 800 pixels wide. The ball, when it bounces off the paddles here, the paddles are not quite at the edge of the screen, which is why we have 390 instead of 400. Here is the function for the paddle and ball collisions, as you can see from my comment. The video here explains in more detail, but essentially when it hits this, it will bounce off. If I can get the paddle in place. There we go. And that is pretty much the whole game. However, if you're actually going to make this game, I would advise following this tutorial, which I'll link in the description. He has a website that has all the code, so you can check your code if you are having issues. And here's my final game. Score counts when it goes off the screen. The ball bounces off the paddles. This is all from code. Code controls everything on the computer, and I think it's a really good thing to learn a little bit about just how that works.